Finished platinum is so very pretty, and as such is often used in high-end jewelry. Other platinum group metals, palladium, rhodium, and iridium, for example, aren't nearly as shiny, but that hardly means they aren't hella useful. The entire group are regular stars in anything that requires the facilitation or regulation of chemical reactions. Such uses include, but are hardly limited to, the exhaust systems of anything that burns anything in order to shift emissions profiles in less toxic directions, platings to impede corrosion, particularly at high temperatures, dental work, given time, teeth and human saliva can destroy nearly anything, and any product that needs to be able to selectively encourage or discourage the flow of electricity, most notably semiconductors of all types. Some 3/4 of the world's platinum group metals, PGMs, are sourced from a single country, South Africa, where nearly everything comes from a single rock formation, the Bushveld Igneous Complex. Imagine if a 6-year-old made a 20-layer cake and then somehow was able to inject frosting up from the bottom, alternatively adding internal frosting layers as well as frosting explosions. Now do it all with magma. That's the Bushveld. It's a weird-ass geological hiccup that to our collective knowledge hasn't been replicated anywhere else on Earth. But its odd combination of consistency and variation has made it arguably the most valuable mineral deposit humanity has ever discovered. The Bushveld practically leaks chromium, iron ore, tin, and vanadium, but the South Africans brush right by all of these world-class deposits to go after the good stuff. The platinum group ores that here, and only here, exist in an unadulterated state, unmixed with other lesser ores. Lesser ores like freaking titanium. Everywhere else PGMs are found, they are a byproduct of other ores, most commonly copper and nickel. After South Africa, Russia is by far the world's largest producer, with nearly 1/5 of global PGMs coming out of Norilsk, a Soviet-built Arctic penal colony whose workers toil a mile underground. So many things have gone so horribly wrong at Norilsk in recent years that the entire place is a cross between a Superfund site and a frigid Tibetan hell. Third through last place combined account for the remaining 5% of output. Even if you can source the appropriate ore, you're hardly out of the woods. It takes a minimum of 7 tons of ore and 6 months of work to extract a single troy ounce of platinum or its sister metals. If you want platinum, you deal with the South Africans or the Russians, or you probably go without. And if you do go without, on a clear, breezy day, your vehicle exhaust will be nastier than the nastiest smog ever recorded. Rarity of rarities. China isn't a top 5 producer, importer, or exporter of a single one of the raw or finished PGMs. The technologies that use PGMs are simply beyond the Chinese. Rare earth elements are simultaneously very complicated and very simple. Complicated in that there isn't just one rare earth. As the word elements suggests, rare earths are a category of materials that includes lanthanum, neodymium, promethium, europium, dysprosium, yttrium, and scandium. Complicated in that rare earths are used in almost everything in the modern era, from sunglasses to wind turbines to computers to metal alloys to lights to televisions to petroleum refining to cars to computer hard drives to batteries to smartphones to steel to lasers. Pew pew. Complicated in that modern life cannot happen without them. Complicated in that rare earths are produced by either uranium decay or exploding stars. Yet, rare earths are simple. Simple in that several of the rare earth elements are not rare at all. Cerium is more common in the Earth's crust than copper. Simple in that the ores of rare earths are often a byproduct of many other sorts of mining. Simple in that we know precisely how to fish each individual rare earth element out of the mixed ore that is mined, and simple in that the problem is that no one wants to do the work. The refining process requires hundreds, and in some cases thousands, of separation units, a fancy term for vats of mostly acid to slowly encourage each individual element to move away from its similar density siblings. Beyond being, incredibly dangerous, even if everything works well, refiners will be left with a lot of waste product. After all, the primary source of rare earths on the actual Earth is from the messy radioactive decay of uranium. None of this is news to those in the industry. The techniques for rare earth extraction date back to before World War II. No trade secrets there. Second, China has done all the dirty work for the rest of us. In 2021, some 90% of global rare earth production and processing was in the PRC. Chinese environmental regulations would make Louisianians blush, while Chinese hyperfinancing and subsidization schemes mean that no production elsewhere in the world can compete on the numbers. The Chinese started producing rare earths en masse in the late 1980s and had forced pretty much all other producers out of business by the 2000s. From some points of view, the Chinese have done us all a favor. After all, they have sucked up all the pollution and all the risk while providing the world with refined rare earth metals at roughly 1/4 of the pre-1980 cost. Without those cheap and ample supplies, the digital revolution would have taken a very different course. Computing and smartphones for the masses may have never occurred. The question is whether the world has become irrevocably dependent upon Chinese output, and whether the sudden disappearance of that output due to either Chinese collapse or dickishness would doom us all. China first publicly threatened Japanese firms and implicitly threatened American firms with rare earths cutoffs back in the 2000s. I vote no on that particular concern. First, the real value of rare earths isn't in the ore, that's pretty common, or even the refining, that process was perfected nearly a century ago, but instead in turning the rare earth metals into components for end products. The Chinese are at best so-so at that. The Chinese have taken all the risks and subsidized all the output, while non-Chinese firms do most of the value-added work and reap most of the rewards. Because the ore isn't rare, and because the processing isn't a secret, and because the first Chinese threats were more than a decade ago, there are already backup mining and processing facilities in existence in South Africa, the United States, Australia, Malaysia, and France. They just don't see a lot of activity because the Chinese stuff is still available and still cheaper. If Chinese rare earths were to vanish from global supplies tomorrow, processing facilities on standby would start up right away and likely be able to replace all Chinese exports within a few months, a year on the outside. And any company that uses rare earths, led by any person who isn't a complete moron, already has months of rare earths stockpiled. Hiccups would abound. Armageddon would not call. Rare earths are a great example of the world just waiting for China to fall, and for once, actually being ready for it.